passengers, welcome aboard Long Walk Talks Lost. This is your pilot speaking. My name is David Hensley, and I'm the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions. I am joined tonight by my two co-pilots,
Robert Bradford,
Cara Hayes,
and we are wrapping up the second season of Lost in our 20-year retrospective, which is weirder to say every time I say it. We are going to be talking about the last three episodes of Season 2, Episode 222, 3 minutes, and then Episodes 223 and 224, which are collectively Live Together, Die Alone, Parts 1 and 2. But first, our themed meal. In honor of the episode titled 3 Minutes, we decided that all of the meals that we individually made were going to be 3 minutes. And it turns out that we're all on the same page here because we took that 3-minute rule very seriously.
I'm going through the frozen aisle, and I'm like, Stouffer's 4.5 minutes? No!
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how all three of us were sticklers to the 3 minutes.
I expected to be the one to be like, this is how much of an idiot I am, guys. I adhered to the rule very carefully. I only picked something that could be made in 3 minutes or less. But the two of you were like, yeah, we also did this thing too.
Yeah, because the thing that was 2.5 minutes, no, gonna have the thing that's 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you went further than I did because I got something that was 2 minutes, 15 seconds. I assumed that if I was within the 3 minute frame, I'd be okay.
As long as you weren't over, absolutely.
Yeah, we operate on Price is Right rules here.
Yes.
So my dinner was a package of Jack Daniel's pulled pork barbecue. It's the kind of thing where you just slit the package open, pop it in the microwave for 3 minutes, slap it on a bun. It was delicious. Cara?
I had a bowl of udon noodle soup that I picked up at Urban District Market, which was really awesome.
And how was that?
Oh my God. The soup or the urban? Okay, yeah, the soup was not the best. I like my soup a little more savory, and this was a little more twangy, tangy, vinegary. Ugh.
It was a vaguely chemical taste to it. It was just, yeah.
I'm really glad we are not sponsored by this company.
Well, yeah, they're somewhere not here. And Robert?
I had a lean cuisine spinach and mushroom pizza. Just one of those things you turn the box inside out and microwave the little pizza on it. It was pretty good.
Those are so good.
Well, it wasn't enough just to have a reference to one episode. We had to have an reference to 23 and 24 since they were Desmond episodes. So we got some scotch. It was monkey shoulder, right, Robert?
It was.
It was delicious.
I even drank some with amaretto added because yuck.
I don't know about the rest of our listeners. I'm a one ice cube kind of guy. Robert, how do you like your scotch?
I usually go either neat or one ice cube when I'm not. I do occasionally like a rusty nail or a Godfather, mix it in with Drambuie or amaretto. So I'm varied. If it's just the scotch, then usually neat. But in the spirit of things, I had an ice cube as well.
Hell yeah. TV dinners, microwave dinners, and scotch, because we are the classiest of
fancy
TV podcasters.
It is probably going to get weirder as we get closer to the end. And like around season 5, we were going to be very desperate.
Well, I mean, we are going to get new characters as the show goes on that we can theme our meals around.
They better be good.
Yeah, I can't wait until we figure out what we want to eat in honor of Nikki and Paolo. Don't say spiders. Let's start our discussion with episode 222, 3 minutes. It's day 65 on the island, and this is a Michael-centric episode.
It's also the third time this season where you've had flashbacks that take place entirely on the island.
Yes, and we see the moments leading up to Michael running away so many episodes ago. 10 episodes ago, it feels like.
I think, 10 episodes, I want to say.
Wasn't it last season? I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a journey that we've been on. But that scene of Michael confronting Locke in the armory concludes with him bashing Locke over the head with the butt of a rifle. And I wrote down, this show loves traumatic brain injuries because getting knocked out is bad. Like, you are knocked out when your brain touches the sides of your skull. It's not supposed to do that. The amount of characters on this show that get hit and like pass out and then are immediately fine is these people should be brain damaged.
Of The male characters especially, how many do we have left who haven't been knocked out with a blow to the head at one point or another?
That's a good question.
Aaron.
Oh, well,
Thank God.
yes.
I mean, technically.
Yeah. I mean, he's had some brain damage. I don't know. I was trying to make a reference to his giant head, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, that is discussed.
He's got extra padding, so I think he's
That's
safe
true.
up there.
Yes.
So yeah, we get Michael knocking out Locke, and then later in the episode, Alex knocks out Michael via rifle butt to the head. Guys, it's TV. That's just how it works.
Yeah, it's also, she's like a teenage girl, and even if she's got I think it's a rifle she hits him with, right? It would have been kind of hilarious to have a moment of Michael shaking his head and just be like, "Ow, what the hell?" And she has to hit him like 3 more times.
That would be a different show.
It would. I'd still watch it though.
Yep. So, I don't know if we've hit this part, but the face that Hurley made, oh my God, it broke my heart.
So it's just like looking over the bodies because they haven't taken them out for burial yet, and they're just still covered on the floor in the hatch.
Yep. Oh, poor Hurley.
Yeah, and Jack has to be the one to suggest that he and Hurley take Libby's body while Sawyer and Kate take Ana Lucia's body. And it's just adds an extra level of tragedy that he's asking two people who are sort of romantic with each other. Hurley has to carry Libby, Sawyer has to carry Ana Lucia. Tragic stuff. In Michael's further flashbacks, we get a jungle run check-in with Michael full-on sprinting. He is on a mission to track down the others.
Well, I think he's got kind of a managed pace. Like, he's making good time, but it's not like the flat-out dash that we usually see, because usually the jungle run is, eek, the monster's right behind me, or, oh, who's that screaming up ahead? And this is Michael knowing he's got to cross the whole island. So he's moving fast, but he's being careful in his motions. It's a different variety of jungle run, and I think we as the judges ought to really appreciate that.
Agreed.
Yeah, and it's the first instance of what is going to become a running theme throughout the show, much like it did on Game of Thrones. How long does it take to get someplace? In early seasons of Game of Thrones, they established it took weeks, months to get from one end of Westeros to the other. And by the end of the last season, they were just sort of doing it in the space of an episode. Here, we start to see really inconsistent times. Like it takes like a day and a half for Jack and Locke and Sawyer to catch up with where Michael went off to. Where here we see he went to the quote unquote line within a few hours.
The island shrinks and expands.
That actually does kind of like jive with the theme of the island, but still it is annoying to try to do that math.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, why did it again, it took it took Saeed 3 days of walking to find Rousseau's camp, and Hurley did it in a few hours. So yeah, the island expanding, contracting, and
it breathes.
words. That's the only explanation for it.
Yeah.
Island magic. When all else fails. We do get a nice moment because he does actually encounter the others and seemingly takes one by surprise. We get our first meeting of Danny Pickett, who was just taking a leak, which is just already we're seeing the others in kind of a more human fashion than we have before. But not so much, because Michael gets the drop on him with a gun, and then we cut to Pickett, and then we cut back to Michael, and the other we've called Mr. Friendly is just standing behind him. Like, it's pure Michael Myers moment of just, oh, he's there now. And Michael tries to turn on the gun on him, and I think with one hand, Mr. Friendly just takes it and points it up in the air. And it's, again, we're getting to the very end of the point where the others seem like supernatural monsters, but I do like this last gasp of kind of the horror filming around them.
I agree, but from a realistic perspective, I love the idea of a big burly man like that actor playing Mr. Friendly, like hunkering down in the grass, waiting, and then gingerly stepping out and straightening up so that he can be there in time to scare the shit out of Michael. But as Michael tries to run away, Mr. Friendly whips out a fucking bolo and uses it to wrap him up and stop him. And I was so taken aback by that for a moment that I completely forgot. Oh, yeah, Ethan did that back in season 1.
Yep, knocked out Jin with one.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Why? Like, I know that the idea at this point is that the others are supposed to be primitive, but just the idea that, is that part of your Dharma training? You have to practice with a rifle, a handgun, and a bolo?
Well, I mean, it makes sense if you think about it because, you might run out of bullets. There might not be a drop of supplies. So you just got to know how to use what you can. And you got rocks. I didn't know those were called bolos, by the way. I thought that was, a slingshot. But no, I guess that's not because, just figured that one out. But I noticed it as like a David and Goliath in reverse, where Goliath is going after David with the bolo.
My kind of in my head explanation is that the others have like their tiers. Like they have their outward facing guys, the ones who might go out and infiltrate survivors or run around in the wild jungle cosplay. And, the ones who are just back hanging out in the village, like at their book clubs, listening to records, those people probably couldn't handle a bolo or wouldn't want to go running around in bare feet. But, like, Mr. Friendly's the leader of, like, the welcome squad. So, guys like him and Ethan, they have their bolo classes every Thursday just to make sure they stay up on it.
That's a really good point. What else is there to do on this island when you're not researching infertility and abducting people? We see later in season 3 that they do have a book club. It's perfectly reasonable that they might have a bolo throwing club. I love it.
Let's see. We do have a scene where Michael is in the hatch and Echo, who's started to hang out in the hatch to be the new person pushing the button, and he's cleaning up the bloodstains from Ana Lucia and Libby. And Michael asks him, being a priest, about what he believes about hell, and Echo tells a story about a young boy, kind of a hard-ass little kid, who tells a story about killing a dog to protect his sister and being scared of going to hell. And when Echo says, well, I think God will forgive you, the boy says, well, he wasn't worried about forgiveness. He was just worried if he went to hell, the dog would be waiting for him. Damn.
That just blew my mind because, like, in my 1,800 years on this earth, I've never thought about hell in that respect.
There's not to jump way off, but one of the things that C.S. Lewis, the theologian, wrestled with was the concept of if animals do go to heaven or hell, like how that is, like as a serious question of contemplation. And he suggested that, heaven for mosquitoes and hell for humans might be combined very conveniently. So just the idea that maybe you just customize hell for animal or heaven for animals as just whether it's more hellish or more heavenly for humans.
Huh.
Yes, but I think we all know perfectly well that all dogs go to heaven.
All of them.
They better.
Except for Cujo.
Even Cujo. That wasn't his fault.
The reason I mentioned the Echo thing was that we do get a lot of close-up shots of him, like, squeezing the water out and it just getting bloodier and bloodier. And, again, kind of a callback to the themes of baptism and sort of religious rites that tie around Echo. And I don't know, it's a kind of a cool, stylish backdrop to the story. And obviously a heavy symbolism of Michael's guilt having to watch the blood that he spilled get, semi-successfully wiped away.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, listeners out there, if we're going through tough times, it's hard out there right now. So if you feel like you want to have a few drinks, tie one on, but you feel guilty about it, maybe you think that societally, culturally, it might be frowned upon. Here's a drinking game for you. Watch this episode of Lost and take a shot every time Michael says the word son.
They have my son.
He's my son. I want my son. You will be fucking hammered 22 minutes into this 42-minute episode. I don't know if that math checks out, but it can't be too far off.
No, it can't. I was going to say before the first commercial break.
I'm really surprised that Sawyer at one point didn't just deadpan, whoa, Mike, you got a kid?
That would have been me, and that's how I would have gotten a shot.
Poor Michael, because we find out he's been given a list of 4 people that he has to bring back, and just those 4. And poor bastard, he has to sell the idea that the most logical people to lead on this supposed, assault rescue mission are Jack, okay, Kate, Sawyer, and Hurley. And he's just got to keep insisting, just the 5 of us, nobody else. And it's kind of amazing that Saeed is the only one who kind of tweaks to the fact that this is, what a weird reaction. Like, even Sawyer, who's just like, you didn't want me to ask the experienced soldier? That's weird. Jeez. And just walks off.
Yeah.
And Saeed's the one who's actually like, okay, no, obviously this is suspicious.
Yes. This is when we get to the part they show Aaron. Oh my Lord, that child has an enormous bulb head. Like, I mean, it's taken turnip head to like the ultimate conclusion.
Kind of amazing that Claire is walking by this point, like, let alone like within days of giving birth.
Yeah, it has only been less than a month at this point since that baby was born, and let's be honest here, she should be ruined.
Well, yeah, especially because she had no drugs or no hospital stuff, and
the only doctor on the island didn't get to see her until like 8 hours afterwards, and he was half dead from exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
We do get a really nice scene where Michael comes back and Jen and Sun get to see him again on the beach, and it's a nice callback to his friendship early on with Sun and then his developing friendship with Jen, to see how happy they both are to see him. It didn't make me miss just the version of Michael we got to see, building these relationships with his son and with all these other people. It kind of bums me out that the last few episodes of Harold Perrin, whose time as a regular on the show, are just kind of him like bugging his eyes out and yelling about his son. Like, he's such a good actor and just can do so much nuance. And I get it, they put the character in a really extreme situation, but he doesn't. I wish he'd gotten to play it like for at least a couple of scenes where he's not playing it like 8 or higher.
Yeah, very much so. But in flashbacks to the night of the hunting party, which was episode 212, I think, back in that episode, we got Alex name dropped by Mr. Friendly, and we all thought that she'd show up a lot soon. Oh, no, she did show up in the Claire's flashback episode, but here we get to see her again, and she's the one restraining Michael, questioning him about Claire, ultimately the one to knock him out. And I put in the notes, hey, it's Alex. Surely everything will work out well for her.
Seems like a nice kid.
Yeah.
Bright future ahead of her.
Mm-hmm. At least for another few weeks. Poor thing.
Wow. Yeah. How long does she have in like actual continuity time? Like a month and a half?
It's something like that, because I'd have to look at it, but just off the top of my head, I want to say season 3, like the actual number of days is pretty condensed.
Yeah.
And then like season 4 is just like a sprint to the finish line. It doesn't take much time at all.
Yeah, season 4 covers like a week or so. It's I remember that being really
so
timeline.
Poor Alex at this point only has maybe a month left, but it will take us a season and a half to get there.
There was something, and maybe this was just me, but the continuity for hair looked a little bit weird. Like, suddenly Sun has like hair that's past her shoulders, which again, I think she'd been wearing in a ponytail recently, so that could be kind of just their way of hiding it, as Yoonjin Kim let it grow out a little. Charlie's hair looks abruptly shorter, which again could have gotten a haircut off. What really messed me up is we see both footage that was filmed during the hunting party of like that night when Locke, Jack, and Sawyer confront Mr. Friendly out in the jungle, and then new footage of what's going kind of behind the scenes for the others. And the beard and hair on MC Gainey, it's similar but just different enough. Like the scraggle in the beard and the way his hair is swept back, it's just different enough to bug me that like he's supposedly walking over and then coming back, but it's clearly the actors, like they haven't got the prosthetics quite right. It's
also a matter of how production schedules work, because of like the way the show would be broken up into chunks. They'd film, I think, like 6 or 8 episodes at a time, and then they get a little bit of a break, and also like changing crews. Over the course of a season, the AD in one episode is going to be different in the next, and it's probably also the same with the hair and makeup department.
Well, I can only imagine, like, for guys like Echo or Desmond, as we see later, who have very different hairstyles in the flashback, just working that around a filming schedule has to be kind of a nightmare.
True, but at least in that instance, you're confined to the space of one episode, instead of like, oh yeah, this is a thing that happened 10 days ago in universe. These should look exactly the same.
We do get a fun scene where, for once, Saeed and Sawyer, despite pretty much always being rivals, are both arguing to Jack, who's, for whatever reason, decided to go along with Michael's just the 5 of us plan. Saeed and Sawyer both agree that it's a really good idea for Saeed to come, and Jack gives in, showing some reasonableness on the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's also in this episode that we get our Sawyer nickname watch check-in.
He fires a shotgun of nicknames at everybody.
He does. It's an absolute barrage. Pippi Longstocking, Grape Ape, and the Red Beret, which I think is the most nicknames we've gotten out of him at once. It's no Gimpy McCrutch, but it's still pretty fucking good. But then later, the racism seeps back in just a little bit, and he does refer to Saeed as Captain Arab. So,
which also a Moby Dick reference, though. So, Sawyer's a well-read man, at least, and mixes that in with his racism.
True.
You know what? You're right. I was going to take away 2 points for that. I'm just going to take away 1, even him out there.
One weird thing is this episode, Charlie is suddenly a good guy again. After, like, kind of the last major sequence we had with him was him revealing that he'd, like, abducted Sun in the jungle and, like, dragged her off with a hood over her head to make it seem like the others had attacked her. And then, now he's just okay again. He's bummed out that Echo's doesn't want to finish the church. It really feels like there were some deleted scenes or a plot that they just didn't have time to get to. And well, we can talk about that more when we do our season 2 wrap up, but it is weird that suddenly he's back to, hey, the Charlie you know and love after some of the really dark places he went to.
The whole he was helping Echo build a church thing is also kind of random. So I think you're right. I think there was supposed to have been another Charlie episode that would have been focused on, I'm going to redeem myself by building this church.
Building a church on an island is Charlie work.
I understood that reference.
I mentioned earlier, we do see Danny Pickett for the first time. I wasn't sure about that because, again, season 3 is where my memories of the show get a little bit fuzzy, but I was like, is that the guy who is kind of one of the big other antagonists in the first part of that? And yeah, we looked it up. It was Michael Bowen, the actor. Seems like an amiable enough guy, though a little bit of a jerk, like all the kidnapping others are. But yeah, we're going to see that he's going to turn a little more sour as time goes on.
Yeah, he is not so friendly as Mr. Friendly as time goes on. And we also get to meet another new other by the name of Mrs. Clue, which even by this show's standards is a little on the nose, but also really, really unhelpful because she provides us with 0 clues.
Yeah, you missed the clue with her. That's the point.
Yeah, she should have just been called Miss Tari.
How did they not do that?
I was going to say, if we could go back in time 20 years and you cracked that joke, then we all goddamn know good and well that there would be a character named Miss Turi or Mr. E.
Okay, in my head, that is now the name of the woman who raises Jacob and the Man in Black. She's Miss Turi.
There you go.
Oh, man, yeah, so she carries on, like, seems like she has a kinship with Michael's ex because she too decides to get in his face about, like, really, where were you when he spoke? Because when Michael's all, you people abducted my son, give him back to me, she's like, well, you don't seem to know your son very well, do you? Which, yeah, still think he's got the right to demand you unkidnap him, lady.
Well, to be fair to Mrs. Clue, I don't think she watched season 1. Or she would have known that they had already covered all of this already.
Yeah, good point. Well, one of the things that just, it goes along with the whole Robert, or the whole thing that Robert brought up about, Charlie having this return to the Charlie we love, when he's out building the church, and Vincent comes running up and brings him one of the Virgin Mary statues. And I decided that Vincent is now the world's cutest drug dealer.
Aww.
It's true, because we all laughed uproariously at just how excited Vincent was that he did this nice thing for Charlie. Like, look, Uncle Charlie, I brought you some heroin. You love heroin, right? Like, he's got
a good boy.
Yeah, like his tail is wagging. He's very happy with himself.
He was. He had a big smile on his little doggy face.
Finally got to dig those out of the ground. Like, and to his credit, Dominic Monaghan delivers a great, are you kidding me? reaction. Like, plays it really well. And yeah, again, because Charlie is a good guy again, he, instead of relapsing, just hurls all the statues dramatically into the sea.
While Locke watches.
Yeah, which, again, given that Locke was the one who, like, beat him unconscious or near unconscious after his lapse earlier in the season, Yeah, it feels like it pays something off that wasn't really there, that they're just kind of maybe okay with each other, except next episode we're going to see that they're not. Yeah, it's weird. I was just laughing when I watched it because it always makes me think of the gag in Arrested Development where Job tries to throw a letter defiantly into the sea, but the wind just keeps blowing it right back in his face.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, now see, in different hands, aka probably mine if I was writing this show, like after he threw out the last Virgin Mary statue, the tide would have brought them all right back up to his feet.
Oh, but you could have done one better and had an octopus chuck one at him.
Yeah.
You know.
Or all 8 at once.
Hey, that'd be great.
Why didn't we get an episode about the heroin shark when that shark in the water just eats all his Virgin Mary statues?
Oh,
Cocaine
yeah.
bear, heroin shark.
Well, I would watch that movie.
I would too, but also the shark wouldn't be attacking anybody because it would be the most relaxed it had ever been. So Echo has taken it upon himself to become like the new button pusher on the island. He thinks it's now his mission to take over where John left off after his crisis of faith. And I put here in the notes that weirdly serene Mr. Echo is actually a lot scarier than angry Jesus stick wielding Mr. Echo.
And we didn't think he could get any scarier.
Also kind of a jerk, maybe not intentionally, but when Charlie comes in to ask him, like, hey, what happened to that thing we were both working on? And Echo's like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. Could you get my stuff and bring it here? And Charlie's like, wait, what? Hold on, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? And Echo thinks for a second and goes, you can go get my things. And he doesn't say it like it. He just says it like, I just had an idea.
Yeah. And I can't remember what was going on, but I made the note, Sawyer answering questions nobody asked.
It's because when Sawyer and Jack are loading up on preparing all the guns to go off after the others with Michael, Sawyer very awkwardly confesses to Jack, I screwed her.
That's right.
Which is just like, even for a character as rough around the edges as Sawyer, I screwed her in reference to a dead woman is especially crass.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a little bit of a nice moment in a weird way because he admits that he's telling Jack because Jack's the closest thing he's got to a friend on the island.
There was that. That did, I don't want to say redeem it, but it improved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, much like Charlie sort of had his hero arc resolved, or his redemption arc resolved off screen, here we kind of get the last button of that with Sawyer because now he's fully back to like the character we like again.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, I will say there's a great moment where they're digging the graves for Ana Lucia and Libby, and Michael is still trying to push Hurley to come with him to carry out his secret mission. And Hurley just says, why would I want to go? Not even just like, you'd be better off without me or I can't, but he's just rejecting Michael's idea that he should want to go out and get revenge. And he gets there eventually. He changes his mind during the funeral, but that, yeah, Hurley, his moral logic is different than most of the other characters who we've seen, like characters like Saeed and Sawyer. Their first instinct is like revenge when something is taken away, and that doesn't even occur to Hurley that he has to be talked into that. Just again speaks well to who he is and why he ends up where he does.
Agreed.
I also mentioned, what did you guys think of, her name is April Grace, the actress who plays Miss Clue. What do y'all think of her performance? It's weird, and I'm still not to this day sure if I think it's weird because it's kind of wooden, or it's weird in kind of an alien, like, ooh, these others are mysterious and strange kind of way.
My suspicion, and since I know so much, I feel like she was told to play it like, that alien kind of, ooh, keep up the mystery. And I think it just came across more as wooden versus mysterious.
Yeah, I think the direction for her was she's got a bit of the touch, the shining, whatever you want to call it, that Walt does. And she's playing up that like, ooh, mystic woman kind of thing. Which also I think lends to the theory of like why they were so desperate to give Walt back. Because it's like, we can't have two of these psychics on the same piece of property. They're driving us insane.
That would be a lot.
No one can play cards here.
Nope.
They always know what we're holding.
Speaking of Walt, we get to see him again.
Yes, and Michael David Kelly is now a full foot taller than he was when he got abducted off of that boat, even though it's been 22 days. It's just hilarious to see him now standing up against the actor that's like holding him captive, and they are almost the same height.
Yeah, they can't let his face be shown in any shots where he's sharing the frame with a recognizable character. So when he's hugging Michael, it's clearly a shorter kid wearing the same clothes shot from behind. When we see his face, he's on the other side of the room, not sharing it. It's awkward, but unavoidable given that they decided they weren't going to acknowledge that he'd gotten bigger.
Yeah. And, I really struggled at this point because I just can't feel sympathy for Michael. I know I should. I probably did, 20 years ago, but I just don't. I just don't give a shit.
It's frustrating to me because he's an architect, he's a planner. He's got an emotional side to him, but it's just, frustrating to see him constantly just be this, I'm going to grab a gun and go running into the jungle and then I'll save him however the hell that works out. And just, you wish that we could have seen more of him using his intellect and his planning ability and just, decide to trust people like Jen and Sawyer who had shown that they were willing to put themselves on the line to help him out.
Yeah, I don't feel like I say normal people. But I just feel like that whole I can't trust anybody. I'm the only one I can trust. That's just not normal.
No, and I know this might have led to some going down a rabbit hole of well, we know he's going to betray us, so we need to be prepared for him. The whole we know he knows that we know that he know, that sort of thing. But there's no reason, I feel like, that Michael couldn't have gone back and told a very intelligent group of people, including an actual con man whose entire life was built around getting one over on people, to be look, this is what they want. They want me to bring the four of you, and they'll trade for Walt.
And to let this other guy out of your hatch.
Right. What can we do with that? How can we con them into thinking that I've gone along with the plan, and what's the backup here? And no, he just murders two people and shoots himself.
Yeah, it feels like a case where plot takes over for character. They wanted Michael to get to this place, so he has to be a much less thoughtful, much more extreme guy than he was in season 1 and the first bit of season 2. Also just sad because it's a magical island, and everybody talks on about how special Walt is. So, why couldn't they just be hey, when did your son get a foot taller? What's going on there? He's rapidly aging. That's crazy. What's going on?
Well, I'm sure they've been giving him those little shots of whatever the hell it is. Maybe it's vitamins, and it made him grow really fast.
Yeah, just
miracle grow.
Given what a central relationship they were, just the fact that the writers decided to just cut them both loose from the show instead of just working this foreseeable thing, this child actor you have is going to hit a growth spurt eventually. It feels weird to me. They just were too quick to let. And there have been reports and rumors about some friction between Harold Perrineau and the creative team. A lot of he said, she said, but I should say he said. It is the Lost Writers Room. But Michael's story is frustrating to me. Just after how rewarding it was in season 1, just knowing where he ends up. I've said it before, but it feels like a missed opportunity for the show.
It does, and also, the writers had an out here because that kid was the right age to grow that much. Teenage boys are going to go through growth spurts. I vividly remember being in middle school and my mother actually getting mad at me because we went out and she had to buy me new pants for school because I had I jumped up a few inches, and then it was the next day or 2 days later I had already outgrown them. I grew something 6 inches in a matter of days, and we had to go out and buy more new pants. So it would perfectly make sense for Walt to have just shot up, and you just have a character comment on it.
And you also have a mysterious island that also
too
expands and contracts.
Exactly. So why can't Walt expand and contract?
Exactly.
So the episode ends with everybody gathering for Libby and Ana Lucia's funeral, and Locke has been sitting on that beach for a while, brooding over his loss of faith. He was there when Charlie was throwing the Virgin Mary statues out into the ocean. He's still there as the funeral procession comes up. His head should have been burnt to a fucking crisp. John Locke is a bald man on a desert island sitting on the beach with zero shade. And yes, I'm aware that they probably pilfered all the sunscreen they could, but I think Shannon used that up 40 days ago before her death.
Yep.
Maybe there was some in the Dharma drop.
That would have been, that would have been nice of them to include some.
But it's hard to imagine Locke getting up from his brooding, going to apply sunscreen every 90 minutes, and then going back down to the same spot.
Yeah.
I figured he took it with him. Stole it.
But I do like the way they end that, because he takes out his knife, cuts off the brace that Jack made for him after he injured his leg in the hatch. And he gets up in a way that's not shot exactly the same, but it is shot in a reminiscent way of him climbing to his feet on the beach back in Walkabout, just indicating that he's reached another point of decision, another point of change that sort of sets him up for what he's going to do in the finale. And I'm going to talk a lot about callbacks and call forwards because we get a lot. Another one is during the funeral, Sun looks out of the water and sees a boat approaching. There's just a big sailboat out there, which, again, the season 1 finale kicked off with them launching the raft that Michael had built, and now season 2, we start off with, this boat has just suddenly arrived offshore for them.
Yeah. You had one more there, but I think we all agree on this. They should really just let Saeed be in charge of things more often, because he's been right in every instance so far this season. Immediately
susses out that Michael is lying to them and is smart enough not to tip his hand on it, and then to quietly find a moment alone with Jack to be like, yeah, Michael's been compromised. We can't trust him anymore.
Mm-hmm. Which leads us into episodes 23 and 24, Live Together, Die Alone, parts 1 and 2, which take place over the course of 3 days this time, days 65 through 67. And these are both Desmond episodes.
Yay!
Desmond's back, everybody. And the ladies rejoice.
The writers claimed he was never supposed to be seen again after running off into the jungle after leaving the hatch in the first few episodes of this season. I don't know if I buy that, but I definitely believe that they didn't anticipate him being as big of a hit as he was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he becomes like the crux of the show as it goes on.
I would say, if you do not include, The Constant, and what is his other one? His 2 kind of time jumpy episodes. If those are not included on your top 10 list of the show, I'd say there's something weird about you, because they just wrote the good ones around him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know that it's him yet, because it's just there's a boat offshore. Saeed, Jack, and Sawyer all go running to get there. Jack makes it into the water first because Saeed and Sawyer take a moment to strip off their shirts, just, for the ladies.
Mm-hmm. Well, as I also put in the notes, Jack had to finally beat the two of them at something. They've been dunking on him pretty much this entire season. He stops long enough to take his socks and shoes off and then says, fuck it, and just dives.
I mean, and the fact that he could swim faster than them in wet jeans.
We get a fun callback because they get onto the boat, and Desmond, for unclear reasons, just unloads his rifle into the doorway of the whatever you call it, the lower deck that he's in
the boat.
Yeah. And when he's out, they open it, and this time he looks up, sees Jack, who's got a gun pointed at him, and Desmond goes, "You," in the same way that we ended the season 2 premiere on.
Yeah, and Cara, that's a good point. After spending so much of his time, as we find out, 3 years down inside that hatch, here he's just in a completely different kind of hatch. I guess after a while, it's just become where you become comfortable.
Exactly.
Honestly, yeah, I can see him feeling safer in that, tucked in that lower space.
Huh. Especially what he went through, when he got to the island, that whole storm and thing, that was awful. But I really am just going to need him to do everyone's lines now. I could listen to him talk for days.
We need a version of the show where, what's that actor's name? Whatever. Who the guy playing Desmond is just dubbing.
Henry Ian Cusick.
Yeah, Henry Ian Cusick is dubbing every actor's lines, including Kate and Son.
Oh, God, yes. I would pay extra for that.
Aaron.
Yes.
Why?
Brilliant. Well, this next one should, by all rights, be the end of our dead all along check-in. This should be our last one, because Desmond certainly believes so. He, after running away from the hatch at the beginning of the season, got on his boat, set sail to try to get away, and all of his attempts to get away led him right back to the island. So he is of the opinion that a lot of people were at that time, that this island is purgatory, that they're all dead and there's nothing else out there. We'll talk about it when we get there, but the end of this episode, or these 2 episodes, firmly confirmed that that's not the case.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that should be our dead all along check-in last time. It's not. Those theories persisted for another 4 seasons.
Similar to what happened with Dave, the writers decided to take like a fan theory. With Dave, it was, this whole island is just a hallucination that one of the characters is having. With this one, it's Desmond saying, yeah, no, it's just the rest of the world's gone and it's now just this island. And actually have a character on the show express it. Later on, Sawyer's going to say that he thinks maybe the others are aliens or androids, both of which were also popular fan theories.
Oh, my God.
We do, in Desmond's flashback, we see him being released from military jail, stockade, I guess they call it.
The brig.
Yeah, he's being discharged from the Royal Scots Regiment of Her Majesty's Army. And we hear his full name for the first time, which is Desmond David Hume. And David Hume, I'm going to go back to philosopher names because we're starting to get the quicker drip of those, was a Scottish philosopher known for his approaches to empiricism and skepticism. One of his most famous quotes was saying that reason is and ought only to be the slave of passions. Basically, his belief that humans are ultimately emotionally driven characters and all of our ethics and rules derive from just our passions and our emotions, which, given that his love for Penelope Widmore is going to be something that pulls Desmond literally across time and space, it's a little anchor for that character.
Nice.
This is what I appreciate about you, Robert. You're making me and Cara and our audience smarter every episode.
Also, fun fact, David Hume disappeared on a boat while trying to sail around the world.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. I made that up. He's buried.
It's not April Fool's yet.
He's buried in Edinburgh. Actually, I've been to his grave.
I'm just so inclined to believe you when you say shit like that because
Right?
you always say it with such authority.
Oh, shit. April Fool's is going to be a terrible time.
It is. We cannot record on that day.
No.
This is also, in his flashback, the first appearance of Charles Widmore. The closest thing this show is going to have to a consistent antagonist. Now, notice I was careful to say consistent because Ben Linus is pretty antagonistic, but eventually comes around and kind of firmly ends up on the side of the good guys. We eventually find out that the smoke monster is pretty much the ultimate villain of the island, but it's a while before we get there. Charles Widmore is going to be a problem for all of these characters for the rest of the fucking show now.
I'd forgotten that we see him in this finale. I knew we got him in season 3, but I was surprised to actually see him in the car waiting for Desmond, which not complaining about it. I love seeing Alan Dale show up. But yeah, so we see Alan Dale playing Charles Widmore after he was referenced earlier on. I think, David, you were the one who caught it, that one of the pregnancy tests that Sun takes is from Widmore Labs. So we eventually find out that he's just kind of generally an industrialist, but it'd be really hilarious if this guy had made like an international fortune just by selling pregnancy tests. That was his. Also, probably the second worst dad on the show after Anthony Cooper.
And that is a tough feat.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was that prompted me to put this. Might as well stop questioning Saeed at this point because we had already firmly, we reached that conclusion as a group. What was the action that made me... Is this when he came up with the plan to sail around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's got the idea to use the boat to get to the camp of the others that Michael's leading them to. He'll scout it ahead and then meet them so they can plan their ambush. And he's going to use the black smoke to signal the party that's moving overland. And
I think Jack takes umbrage with this plan, which is just, at this point, like, dude, just go. If Saeed says it, just do it.
Yep.
And then later, oh my God.
Cringe moment.
Yeah, so shortly after that, Locke confronts Mr. Echo in the hatch and finds out that Echo has taken over for him as the firm believer in pushing the button. And Locke tells him that he shouldn't do it anymore. He should give up on pressing the button.
And Echo asks why.
And Locke says to Echo, because you don't want to be a slave. At which point the three of us all at the same time went, oh.
Echo very generously just gives him kind of a hard look, but doesn't push any further until Locke decides to then pick up his the Jesus stick and try to hit the computer with it. Echo kind of awesomely catches it one-handed when it's on the way down.
So amazing.
And then beats the crap out of Locke about as thoroughly as you would expect Mr. Echo to beat the crap out of Locke. He also does drop a "don't tell me what I can't do" when Locke is telling him, which I don't imagine Locke enjoys hearing that when other people are saying it.
Yeah, no, he definitely doesn't. And, it just proves the point. You just don't test the man. Like, let him be. He's doing his thing. You're always going to lose when you go up against Mr. Echo. I'm sorry. He beat 2 people with a rock.
Except for the smoke monster that one time, like a season from now. That doesn't work out so well for him.
But even then, that's a one-on-one thing. Like, Echo stared it down and it left the first time. And even if the second round goes to the smoke monster, as far as I'm concerned, they're in a draw.
Agreed.
Yeah, the smoke monster does spend a season really pissed off about that one.
That was the last time we saw it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he does spend the whole time.
He scared it into submission.
And he's just in his little,
You know what?
whatever.
I'll come back in a few weeks.
Wonder where smoke monsters live. But wherever he lives, he's just sitting in there grumbling.
Well, I think down in that hole that he tried to pull John Locke down into.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And I think later we find out that that's the hole that he comes out of whenever Ben summons it, right? Him, it, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Well, it's through one of Desmond's lines where they were talking about the others that he refers to them as the hostiles, which is not the last time we're going to hear that particular usage for them. And we find out later that he got that from Kelvin Inman, the other guy who was in the hatch, who was the first person to call them the hostiles.
So just our first confirmation that the Dharma Initiative was aware of somebody else on the island. Saeed does have to recruit Jin and Sun to help him sail the boat because while Iraq's military can teach you many things, they're not really good at naval stuff. So
Why?
not much call for it, I guess. I'm joking. I think they actually did have like a navy being on the Persian Gulf, but you literally never read about it being defeated in either of the wars that the United States fought with them. So I can't imagine there was much of an actual conflict.
Yeah.
Continuing Desmond's flashbacks, we see him back in the States where he encounters, surprise, surprise, Libby. In the great tradition of characters still popping up on the show after they've been dead, after they've been killed, we get to see Cynthia Watros as Libby again. And for this flashback, they put her in the most god-awful fucking bob wig.
Oof.
This was, I think, airing around the same time as the final season of Alias, which was the other big show J.J. Abrams had done. And if I remember right, one of that show's big things was putting Jennifer Garner in like a really obviously like over-the-top wig as part of her like undercover spy stuff. This just felt like they borrowed it from the costume department.
It probably did.
Just a nice little piece of character connection. Libby gives Desmond the boat. She lets him use the boat that her husband was going to use before he died. And it was just a sail around the... No, he said he wanted to sail to the Mediterranean. He just wanted to travel. That boat will, of course, eventually bring Desmond to the island. He will cause the crash of a plane that Libby is a passenger on. He will sail that boat away from the island and then be carried back literally at the moment of Libby's funeral. So that's just a whole closed circuit of character connections there.
We have got to get this murder board going.
Honestly, the thing that is, of all the implausibilities and craziness that happens on the show, the idea that after one conversation she would be like, yep, here's the boat, take it. Doesn't stretch my imagination at all. Look how handsome Henry Ian Cusick is. Look how charming he is when he talks about like wanting to win this race. And it's just like, yeah, I would have been like, I don't have a boat, but here are my keys. You can sell my car. Maybe that'll get you part of the way there.
Sell my house.
Here's my wallet.
Dude, listen, he didn't, if he just opened his mouth, I'd have been like, here you go.
We also, yes, you make a very good point. Henry Ian Cusick is a very handsome man, and I also probably would have given him literally the shirt off my back and probably also the pants off, whatever. But we also don't know where in the timeline. Well, obviously, we know it's at least 3 years before he crash lands on the island, but we don't know when this is for Libby.
Before or after her time in the institution.
Exactly. So it's entirely possible that she could have been like, here's the keys to my husband's boat. And also, here's the lock of his hair that I cut off at his funeral. And here's a Ziploc bag of my own feces that I've been collecting for the last few weeks. Libby could have been full-blown psychotic at that point.
I mean, that's true. They could have just, that could have hit the cutting room floor. Who knows?
Just a solid half hour of Libby trying to give Desmond.
And it'd just be like, the boat is enough, thank you.
Fingernail clippings.
That's why she ended up in the institution. They finally had to call the cops to get her out of that Starbucks.
Oh, God.
I'm so sorry. That's very insensitive of me. Oh, Robert, please continue.
Yeah. I just kind of noted this here, though it could really happen all through this finale. They are really ramping up the love triangle. Like, it's been a thing in the background since the beginning of the show. Excuse me. But, yeah, just pushing, like, Sawyer wanted to know if Jack and Kate kissed while they were out in the jungle, and Kate looking insecure, like, between Sawyer and Jack, and I don't care about this triangle. I don't, and it's kind of frustrating to remember how this is going to be like the thing that they pivot all of these characters around for the first eight or nine episodes of the next season. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Well, by now they've killed off Ana Lucia, and she was the only other person who could have broken up this love triangle by going either direction. Like, there's a lot of flirting between her and Jack. She ultimately ends up having sex with Sawyer. And either one would have set the stage for Kate to end up with the other one. But now that she's gone, we're back to full-time love triangle. I also hate it and don't care. But you know what I do care about?
What?
The fucking bird that comes out of the jungle and screams Hurley as it flies overhead. What the fuck?
Yeah, nobody in the writer's room could have had any idea what that was about. That had to be just like, why don't we do this? What does that mean? I don't know. Let's do it. Yeah.
We have some CGI budget money at the end here.
Uh-huh. We'll explain it later. Jump cut to 4 seasons later. They're getting to the end of season 6. Did we ever explain the Hurley bird? Oh, I don't think we did. Well, we're out of time. No, the Hurley bird gets zero explanation whatsoever.
Yeah, the main thing, its function is to startle them so Michael can try to shoot it, which maybe not a necessary thing to do to a bird in a jungle, but to discover that his gun isn't actually loaded, which does kind of make an awkward moment for Jack trying to preserve the deception.
Yeah, well, let's be honest here. Michael's been pretty trigger happy the last 48 hours, so I probably also wouldn't have given him a loaded gun.
Nah.
There's a weird scene, I mentioned it earlier, when Charlie, who seems like he's back in his good guy mode, finds Locke, who's just crying in the forest because, his people are still pushing his button. And Charlie needs to tell Locke that Desmond's back on the beach because Locke and Desmond I'm saying need, like this is what the plot needs them to do. And so Charlie tells him that Desmond is there, but he says it like it's this burn on Locke, like, your mate Desmond, he's on the beach. Bet you'd like to go talk to him. It's like, yeah, actually he would. Why are you saying it like you've discovered his ugly ex-wife or something?
Bet you'd really like to hear that smooth as butter accent again, wouldn't you, Locke?
He's got a giant supply of liquor. Maybe he'll share some with you.
Yeah, you guys can sit across the fire from each other and gaze longingly into each other's eyes. Bet that'd really piss you off, wouldn't it?
Again, the only thing I can think is Dominic Monaghan was like, I've decided Charlie is still mad at Locke for what happened, so I'm going to deliver this in a hostile way, but it feels weird and unmotivated.
Yeah.
This also comes after Charlie finds Locke full-on crying like a child in the forest, which would have been uncomfortable for that character because it was uncomfortable for me as an audience member watching Terry O'Quinn have to try to cry his eyes out.
And to be fair, unlike some other members of the cast, Terry O'Quinn absolutely can cry.
Lucia.
Yeah, it's true. We've seen him do it. So at this point, it is 2004. That's when the plane crashed on the island, and Desmond says that it has been 3 years since he set sail, which means he left in 2001. And I put these jokes right themselves because Desmond caused the plane crash. What other traumatic event in 2001 might he have caused?
We're not touching that one.
No, we don't. Okay, you know what?
Nope.
We'll do that. We'll cover that one on my side podcast. 9/11 was an inside job, and how it corresponds to the TV show Lost. It's all connected.
There is that scene where they try to cut their way into the hatch with thermite, only to discover that it can't melt structural steel, or whatever. No, it's jet fuel can't melt steel. Whatever.
Oh, what have I done?
Can't wait to see you in hell.
I'll see you guys there. Actually, no, I'll see you there, Cara.
Absolutely. No, Robert is too good. He's not going to
Robert
hell.
will be toasting our memories from heaven with all the dogs.
While we toast. Yep.
But hey, y'all say hi to my cats for me.
We will.
Oh, Gina's never going to listen to this. 3 years from now, she's going to walk up and punch me, and I will have no idea why. Yeah, my wife Gina, I don't know if I mentioned this to the listeners. She's not watching this, or she's not listening to these episodes because she only got to partway into season 3. And since we're talking all the scope of the show, I told her not to listen to it until we'd actually gotten around to finishing it. Speaking of things later in the show, there's a moment where Jack and Michael are in the jungle, and I think Michael tries to just sort of say, like, I appreciate what you guys are doing. And Jack says, live together, die alone, right? Which just made me think about the fact that both Jack and Michael will prepare themselves to die alone when their time finally comes, and at the very last moment, they'll have a visitor who makes it so they don't have to. So that's a nice little connection between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad I've forgotten so much of this.
I can't wait to relive so much of this with you. We get our first vision. That's not the right word. We get our first view of the four-toed sloth.
Four-toed sloth.
The 9/11 joke just threw me. It's broken me for the rest of the episode. That's probably karmic. We get our first view of the four-toed statue. If I over-enunciate everything I say for the rest of the episode, I'll get it all out. Yes, as Saeed, Jin, and Sun are sailing around the island, we see half of a statue that only has 4 toes.
It's not even half of a statue. It's like
the ankle down, basically.
Yeah, I was thinking like just below the knee. But either way, I remember this being like, what the fuck am I looking at? Like, it just blew my mind.
And we will find out later, I think in the penultimate episode, why there's only like its ankles and feet. But we never find out what the significance of the statue itself was.
I was trying to look up and be like, are there mythical figures, like in some mythology or cosmology, who only have 4 toes? I thought it might be a reference to Goliath, like the Philistine from the story, but my counting was off. He had 6 toes, not 4. So otherwise, yeah, I got nothing.
Well, it's around this time that we get the flashbacks showing that while he was trying to sail around the world to win the love of Penny and also her dad's money, Desmond crashed on the island. And I put down here in the notes that some film student decided to have fun with the editing of this boat crash because it's the most stylistically edited sequence of the entire show so far. And I'm willing to bet the show as a whole is just like... it's so indicative of like early aughts music video editing, and it drove like as somebody who does professional editing, it drove me insane to watch. Anyway, hey, Clancy Brown is back.
I love him.
Oh, if only he could have stayed longer.
Right. Yeah, the former a soldier who was part of the group that got Saeed into torturing in the first place. Now, I guess about 10 years later, you find out that he is part of the Dharma Initiative, and he was one of the keepers of the hatch who discovered Desmond after the crash and took him in and rehabilitated him, and then gaslit him for 3 years.
Yeah, took me 3 years to build the... I love how casually he admits it when Desmond finally confronts him, but we do find out he had a partner named Radzinski, who we will eventually meet down the road in a different timeline. But we see the end of Radzinski's story in a reddish-brown stain on the roof of the hatch. So, that's something to look forward to. I just noted real quick, another philosopher named Kelvin was, and I don't know if this is a specific thing, but was a British scientist and astronomer who probably most famously known for the Kelvin unit of temperature is named after him. So I don't know if that really ties into the character, but... another thing of them just kind of reaching into the the register of famous scientists for characters.
Nerd. while they are trekking through the jungle on their way to quote-unquote rescue Walt, Kate spots some others following them, and for no good reason decides that she's going to shoot at them, proving once again that not only is Kate dumb and a bad criminal, she still can't shoot. Because
there are 4 people with her. She tells one of them. That's enough to mount an effective counterattack, right?
Her and Sawyer start shooting at the others that are following them. She hits nobody, but Sawyer manages to kill one of them. Kate, just stop.
Please.
That's all I have to say about that.
Wish she would have.
But this does lead to the confrontation with Michael, where the truth comes out and everyone learns what he did.
And again, you feel just, to the extent you can feel bad for Michael, just the look on Hurley's face as he's staring at him. And Michael tries to say that Libby was an accident. He didn't know she was going to be there. He didn't have time to think. And Hurley just kind of quietly asks him, but if you did have time, you still would have killed her, right? And Michael can't really say anything to that because, yeah, Hurley is not going to let Michael let himself off the hook there.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Well, now we are on the very short road to the end of this season.
Yeah, Locke and Desmond managed to lock Echo out of the area with the
computer?
The computer in it, thank you. Echo, and again, another callback, he climbs up the rope that they used to get down the hatch the first time, so because he can't access the regular exit, gets Charlie and comes back in. Charlie wonders if it's really such a bad thing if they don't push the button, and Echo kind of awesomely just shoves him up against the wall, yanks his belt off. I try to remember where this scene is going, and then throws it down the hallway where it latches against the magnetic wall. And it's just, again, another nice moment of Echo just not needing to use a lot of words to communicate what his audience needs to hear.
Mm-hmm. It's worth noting that the vine rope that was used to climb down to the hatch has now been there in that same exact spot for 23 days. So that is a sturdy-ass vine.
It would have to be in the jungle.
Yeah, exactly, especially on Magical Island.
Yes.
So on the other side of the island, their plan is coming together. Saeed is going to flank the others at the camp that Michael is taking them to and win the battle and save the day, except fuck, nobody's there.
Not only is nobody there, but it looks like, the hatch is just a set of doors over just the wall. There is not only is nobody there, it doesn't look like anybody actually was living there.
Yeah, the others went to great lengths to basically prank Michael. And as great as this scene is, it gives us another buttholster check-in, this time drinking doubles. Because Saeed has 2 pistols tucked behind his back, firmly going down his butt crack. Listeners, if you want another excuse to get drunk, go back and restart this episode and take a shot every time I say the word firmly. I don't know why that's become my thing in this episode. I said it out loud and I went, why the fuck do I keep saying firmly? Anyway, let's continue.
We do find, this was the thing that I was kind of tickled that neither of you remembered. We find the other end of that pneumatic tube from the Pearl Station where, all those notebooks have just been getting shot out into the middle of an empty field. And there's just a giant pile of notebooks and tubes. And the question I think we all had was, wait, where are they getting more tubes, though?
Yeah.
Because there's just, it doesn't, I guess they just come and somebody shuffles them around and then they do a big, but, the Dharma Initiative for a group of 60s hippie, free love scientists, really not big on recycling, clearly, because all that paper is just sitting there.
And all those plastic tubes. They are wasting so much plastic.
They killed the dolphins and turtles and stuff.
The Dharma Initiative is the reason that we have to cut the containers for our sodas.
6-pack soda. Yes.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Dharma Initiative bastards. I started writing down here. The presence of the tubes in a field indicates that the observation station was the experiment. Oh, Desmond just said that out loud. I was like, I'm smart. Good on me. I noticed that. Fuck.
And as he's coming more and more to realize that, the button pushing is probably a good idea, Locke is just doubling and tripling down on the, no, it's not real. There's no consequence.
Uh-huh. That's going to backfire on him. To conclude, like this trek through the jungle that the five of them have been taking, they see Saeed's signal fire way the fuck off in the distance in the wrong direction, which kind of tips the fact that the others were fucking with Michael, it seems like, and Michael's been fucking with them because a little, like, electric darts start flying through the air, which I think I take to mean not only have they mastered the art of the bolo, but probably also the blowgun. But
yeah,
these
but how are they electrified, or is it like a drug that?
Yeah, we get it's like a delayed thing. Like it's not like a line feeding back to a base like you have with a taser or a normal stun gun. It's like you get shot with a dart, and then you have a second to realize you've been stung, and then you get zapped.
And they start convulsing. That's not great when you've got a bunch of idiots with guns trekking around the jungle who probably don't know what the words trigger discipline means. It's amazing that there weren't just bullets flying all over the place.
Hey, Kate might have been able to hit something.
Jack does fire off a couple of rounds kind of pointlessly in the jungle, and I remember that being a big like shot in the trailers for this episode, like, oh, gunfire in the jungle, and it's like Jack just has no idea where his targets are. He's just desperately trying to suppress, and he gets hit a second later. You know, you mentioned the blowgun a second ago, and I'm wondering, when they originally filmed it, was the plan that it is just like a drug dart and like the convulsions are them just being drugged, and then after the fact they decided to add in the buzzing sounds to just make it seem a little more effective?
I have mentioned on here before, this was early in season 1, and I've kind of let it go since then, that the sound design on the show often drives me insane. I first noticed it with the gun confusion. Like at one point early in season 1, Saeed's gun was making way too many fucking noises, little click clacks. And yeah, I think here somebody was just like, oh, they're convulsing on the ground. We should add a little buzzing noise in. But we see the conclusion to the lead up to the conclusion of Desmond's flashback is him discovering that Kelvin has been lying to him and gaslighting him for 3 years. He's been rebuilding the boat that he crashed on. Desmond doesn't even really bash his head on a rock. He kind of just knocks him over. And I think Clancy
he gets one little like bonk, like when he grabs him by the hair.
He gets one little bonk, and Clancy Brown's head caves in like it's made of paper mache.
He is the one guy on the island who doesn't have like a concussion-resistant skull.
Yeah, it's true. And that leaves Desmond having to run back to the hatch to press the button in time, so we get not a jungle run, but our first mesa run across that weird section of the island that's really rocky. And this time, it's Desmond doing the mesa run and looking good doing it. Mm-hmm. Here is our last great big, whoa, what the fuck moment of this season, and one of the greatest ones of this show so far, and I think just in general across the whole thing. Desmond, while talking about what happened during the lockdown, the first time they missed pressing the button, and then looking through like the dot matrix printout of what happened the day of the accident, discovers that him putting in the code too late is what caused the electromagnetic incident that caused flight 815 to crash, and says the line to Locke, "I think I crashed your plane." And to first-time watchers, this is a holy shit moment.
What's insane is they've introduced so many new questions and mysteries that you've almost forgotten about, oh yeah, why did the plane crash in the first place, as being a big question to answer. And then when they drop that in, it's just, oh my gosh, yes, and it fits together. It's one of the great reveals. And for all, this show has a reputation for not giving satisfying answers, which I think is a little unfair, but I see where it comes from. This reveal is just awesome. It's mind-blowing, it fits in, and it ramps up the stakes for what's happening right in the moment when it's revealed, because it's proof for Desmond that, yes, something bad will happen if the button is not pushed.
And I misremembered this as happening much earlier, because back in the season premiere, when Locke is looking through those dot matrix printouts, you see him like flipping through them and perusing what's printed on them. If he had gone just a...
Sorry, I swallowed the water in a weird way, but the printouts, I think, are the ones that Echo brought back from the Pearl Station. They only got those because that's where the printout is of every time the button gets pressed. I think Locke was just looking at other stuff in the...
I got you, because I remember thinking if he had looked just a little bit farther, he might have figured that out earlier. I remember that I crashed your plane happening at the beginning of the season, but it's much more effective here. And so after... after Michael gets Jack, Kate, Sawyer, and Hurley caught, they are confronted by the others. Kate finally gets to bust out the knowledge on them that she knows they're faking and that Mr. Friendly's beard is fake. So he just kind of casually pulls it off. Now, here's where the theater nerd in me comes in. Because just about a little over a month ago, the three of us were all together in a show, a production of Cyrano de Bergerac, where for 2 weeks I had to cake my nose in spirit gum and then attach a fake nose on top of it. And when Kate finds the makeup kit earlier in the season in that episode with Claire where they find the medical hatch, she sees Dharma branded spirit gum in there. You can't just take that shit off. There is specifically a product called Spirit Gum Remover that you have to use to get anything that you have spirit gum to your face off. That should have hurt like hell is what I'm saying.
Well, I think
That's how big a badass Mr. Friendly is.
I don't think Mr. Friendly used it because when he pulls it off, he kind of pulls it off from one ear to the other, you can actually see like a little bit of like clear sticky tape. It's very thin, but I saw it and I was like, he's not using spirit gum. So that's
Maybe he got tired of the whole elaborate removal process. Like, I'm just going to tape this thing in place from now on.
That's got to be a long ass process getting that thing off.
Yeah, it's either that or they like woke him up and they're like, hey, Tom, Friendly, they're here, they're early. You gotta get in costume right now. And he's
shit.
like, fuck. You know what? I'm just gonna get who's got some double-sided tape.
Yep.
We do get confirmation that his name is Tom, that Miss Clue calls him by that, and he calls her B in return.
B Clue. Is her middle name A? Does it start with A? Is she B A Clue?
Well, she is going to be a major, important, recurring character, so we'll have a lot of time to tease that stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe it's spelled like B. Arthur, like BEA.
There we go.
Actually, yes, it is.
Oh, well, there we go.
Remember that?
Huzzah.
We do. We have the glorious return of the man once called Henry Gale, and the reveal that yes, he's actually the boss of the others. Not exactly a surprise, because duh. But oh man, it's just you're so happy that this guy's going to be around a lot more.
I hated him so much, and that's like, back when I don't know, did stuff like that. I hated characters, and I hated Benjamin Linus. Like, I wanted to kill him myself.
Well, at this
now
point,
I love him.
Yeah, at this point, we all have the benefit of knowing where that character is going to go. Now, and for like the next season, we are only going to know him as the manipulative bastard before he gets any sort of redemption. There's a redemption arc done right.
Yeah.
Not just off screen over the course of half a season.
But he's got to get to a pretty low point before that happens.
Yeah.
Speaking of beautiful arcs, we get a reveal that of what happened when the light came on back in season 1, when Locke was pounding on the hatch after Boone died. And he tells Desmond about this. He's like, I thought that meant something, but it was probably just you going to the bathroom. And in fact, we find out that Desmond was at his basic point of lowest despair. Like, Kelvin was dead. He was alone in there. He had no idea if he could leave and if he was ever going to get out. And he was staring at a gun, thinking about just ending it all. And he hears someone banging on the hatch and shouting. And he just has this moment where he realizes, and he's just read Penny's letter. I'd forgotten about that this letter that tells him she was going to wait for him and she would always love him. And he threw all that away by going on this stupid, pointless race. And then, he hears John Locke and he goes out and he turns the light on. And just for a moment, he's not alone in the world anymore. And, oh man, just the reveal that one of the most beautiful, shocking moments of season 1 had an equally beautiful moment on the other side of it. So sorry. I love this show. I love when it pulls those off.
Yeah.
And really just the whole arc of Desmond, because Penny, we see her in person once in the run up in this episode. She has one scene where she and Desmond actually meet and they're talking. And in that time they build a relationship and a sense of connection so that when Desmond is looking he's about to turn the failsafe key because it's too late to hit the button. And he says, "I love you, Penny," before turning it. I'm glad we got to see Desmond again, but it really just feels like they told a whole story with this guy. And it's, oh man, just what those actors did with just those few moments. I'm glad there's more, but they left it all on the table. And we get not for the last time, when Desmond turns the key, we get a fade to white as as whatever is in the hatch just discharges and the sky turns purple.
That is one scene that I still clearly remember. Like, it has stuck with me because it just was like, what the hell? And so when that happens, I forget what it is that comes flying.
It's the door from the top of the hatch that said quarantine.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and Claire, I don't know, she takes like a step, and then she just kind of turns around like, huh. Like, no. You don't make that face. You might pee your pants, and you start crying because you almost died.
Well, it is very clear that they CGI'd that door into there, so they probably just had to give her and the actor playing Bernard a very vague idea of what it is that they're looking at.
But wouldn't they have said you are almost killed by a flying hatch door?
They would have. But like when it comes to actors reacting to CGI things that aren't really there, you really need to like look towards Ian McKellen and the mental breakdown that he had trying to maintain that while filming the Hobbit films.
Yeah.
When they put him at a table with 12 tennis balls and no real people to interact with.
Okay, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. That we'll discuss that more on my other podcast, Gandalf Did 9/11.
Oh, God.
I'm so sorry. I made that joke and then realized it was my turn to talk. So when Ben is talking, did we get a name from him, Ben, or are they still calling him Henry?
We don't. Nobody addresses him directly, so we know his name's not Henry Gale, but we don't know what his real name is yet.
Fuck it, I'm just going to call him Ben. And when Ben is talking to Michael, he gives him the bearing that he needs to take in the boat to get away, and he tells Michael, once you leave, you won't ever be able to come back here. And I just wrote about that.
Technically true. Michael never sets foot on the island again.
Yeah, he does get back there on the freighter in season 4.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he does make his way back there, Ben.
We do get a reveal that of the 4 names that were on the list for Michael to bring, they only actually want 3 of them. They set Hurley free and they tell him to go back and just give a message to the other survivors. And one would wonder why they were so fixed on it being Hurley that did that. And then you realize that probably is because they estimate he will take the longest to get back. So they've got the most time to do what they need before any chance of a rescue is coming.
Yeah. And see, like my problem in that moment, I never would have made it back because I couldn't have found my way around the jungle. It all looks the same.
Yeah, they're putting a lot of faith in him and his ability to navigate things.
Yeah.
It's kind of another moment for Hurley of a reminder that his curse was always good luck to him and bad luck to everybody else. That he's fine and he does well, but the people around him suffer and die and have misfortune. So, yeah, he has to be feeling pretty crappy as he walks away and leaves Jack, Kate, and Sawyer to get hoods put over their head.
And to be fair, the last we see of Hurley, he is walking off towards the jungle that they came out of. However, this dock is on a beach, and their camp is on a beach. If Hurley picks a direction and keeps walking, he's going to end up back there eventually.
Unless he picks the wrong direction. Oh.
I mean, what if he just
That's how circles work.
Well, he could just keep going in a circle. Like, just keep going around and around, and he wouldn't know because it all looks the same.
If it's any indication that of what happened to Desmond, I think that he would just by sheer chance end up back there anyway. That's just my thought on it.
I mean, it could be, but the island expands and it contracts. So,
exactly. It could take him 3 days to get back, or it could take him half a day. Ben really wasn't thinking about that when he told him to get back to buy them some time. The expansions and contractions. One of the things that this show is going to come to love, like Robert mentioned, the symmetry of it all. Season 1 ended with, or the season 1 finale started with some characters setting out on a boat. The season 2 finale starts out with a character arriving on a boat. And here we find out that one electromagnetic incident is what caused the crash and what caused them to become lost. And another electromagnetic event is what causes them to be found. The hatch blowing up The big burst of electromagnetic energy that they see is what alerts the station that Penny is apparently funding to their presence. And this will have long-reaching consequences for the rest of the show. The hatch blowing up sets up the end game for the rest of the series at this point.
Which is just a great thing after, and we can talk more in the review, but just the fact that there is a consequence to this thing that was the central focus of season 2, that like the hatch mattered, and it, like, when it's gone, the world has just gotten bigger. Literally, because we get our first present day footage off the island when we see this watch station. This is the first non-flashback we've seen of anything happening outside the island. And so it deflates Desmond's theory that the world isn't out there anymore. And not only is the world out there, we ended on Penelope Widmore getting a phone call.
Mm-hmm. Thus putting to bed forever the theory that they were dead all along.
That's certainly not something people are still thinking and believing today.
Nope. Not at all. I refelt. Is that a word? Refelt?
Sure.
Yeah, I refelt the relief, I guess, that Penny hadn't given up on Desmond. But yeah, back in the day, that just was pure torture, because I have to wait how long? It was an interminable wait for the next season.
Mm-hmm. Well, for us, it's only going to be 3 weeks, so we got that going for us. So that's the end of season 2. Over the next 2 weeks, we'll be doing our season 2 wrap-up. So next Wednesday, the 2nd, not the 1st, we'll be releasing our season 2 roundup episode where we talk about, like we do with season 1, the highs, the lows, what worked, what didn't. And then on April 9th, we'll be doing our next Lost Actor adjacent film discussion. So last time we watched the movie Brick because it featured actress Emily DeRabin. This time we're going to be watching The Stepfather, featuring Terry O'Quinn, a.k.a. John Locke himself.
With hair.
With hair. So if you want to watch that movie in preparation, that episode will be dropping April 9th. And that means that on April 16th, we'll start talking about season 3. And
we have to go back.
We have to go back. And the plan is, because our theater schedule is going to ramp up during the summer, season 3 of the show will take us up through I think the beginning or the middle of June, at which point this show will go on another hiatus for the rest of June, July, August, and we'll be back in September, pretty much a year from when we started, picking up with season 4, and we'll go on like that. And about this time next year, we'll be finishing up Lost and have to figure out what we're doing next.
Oh, man.
But that's next year's problem. For us, we still got 4 seasons of Lost to go.
Yay.
Thank God.
Social media? Anybody want to talk about it?
Nah. I watched the first episode of a fun show on Netflix called The Residence. There's a murder mystery in the White House and an eccentric detective has to solve it.
That sounds like the plot of the show Paradise on Hulu. There's an eccentric murder of a president.
Oh.
Or there's the murder of an eccentric president, and one of the Secret Service members has to solve it.
Is that the one with James Marsden?
Yes, it is.
Ah. Yeah, this one seems goofier.
I hope so. Having watched the first few episodes of Paradise, that show's pretty fucking goofy, but not like the way it should be.
But not in a good way.
Not in a good way.
Yeah.
No. So no socials from the two of you. That's fine. That makes sense. I've come to believe that social media was a worse invention than the nuclear bomb. But if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can do that at DB Hensley.
At least the nuclear bomb would have killed us quickly.
That's true. If you want to keep
up... Sorry.
If you want to keep up with the Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us to see more of our original work or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming. You can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show or any of the shows on the Long Walk Podcast Network, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you are listening on.
We'll see you in another life, brother.
Namaste.